Hey guys, it's Morty again, and today I'm going to be going over the selection and movement tools in Paint.net. These tools will effectively cover the first 8 tools in the toolbar window here, and that's about half of the tools that we're going to be going over. And I'll be going over the next half in the next episode, I would say. So for viewing purposes, I'm going to move the toolbar from the left-hand side of the screen over to our workspace just so you can see it better, and we're just going to jump right into it. So the first selection tool we're going to be going over is the rectangle select, which is just your basic selection tool. It's the same thing that you would have on your desktop if you were just clicking and dragging and trying to get your desktop icons to be dragged to a different part of the screen. It's the same thing, except instead of desktop icons, you're going to be dealing with, uh, graphic assets and text. So our second tool here is going to be the lasso tool. That allows you to effectively draw a shape, and that will be what your selection is. So instead of just dragging a little box, you could make a circle and have it autocomplete there. Or you could draw a star if you wanted. Not that I'd really know what purpose you could have for that, but if you're trying to get something just right and you only want to select that much of, a certain shape, such as this star right here, then that would be your way to do it. But I have to say, I use the lasso select tool the least out of all the selection tools, so it's just generally if you need a certain shape selected perfectly, you can use the magic wand for that, which I'll go into in a little bit. But we'll go to the ellipse select for now. An ellipse is an imperfect circle, an oval essentially. So with this, you can hold shift and make it a perfect circle, because I mean an ellipse could be a perfect circle just like, on every other possibility. It's just going to be some random oval shape, however you drag it, which could, like I said, be useful, but like you'd almost just be better off using the rectangle select because you can get more accurate selections, I would say. The rectangle select is the one I use most in addition to the magic wand, which the magic wand, uh, let's say all of your stuff is on one layer, which I'll go into layers in a future episode. But for now, let's just assume that all of your stuff is in one layer. Uh, you could just take this magic wand tool, and if you wanted to select this Paint.net logo, all you have to do is click it, and then if you have multiple colors that need to be selected by the magic wand tool, you just hold Control or Alt if you want to get rid of certain selections. But you can hold Control and keep clicking and adding more things to your selection, and eventually you will have the entire logo selected. You might have to zoom in real far by holding Control and scrolling with your mouse wheel, or using the zoom tool, which I'll go into in a little bit. Um, you can just select the whole thing, and then you don't have to worry about moving too much or too little of what you're going for selection wise, which is nice. Obviously, that didn't work out as well as you would think, but that's only because the magic wand tool works by looking for colors that are too different from each other, like they pop against each other, and it'll only select one of the colors. But if you make like a black outline around this entire logo and then try and select the black outline and then all the stuff inside, that would work a lot better, which is typically what I do. But that's a more advanced trick. So pretty much, if you just want to deselect, just click on any of the selection tools. I just use rectangle select and just click once. That'll deselect everything that's there and give you a chance to not have to worry about only acting within the selected area, which is what's happening. When this area is selected, you can only make changes within this selection. So, for example, if I tried erasing, it's outside of that selection area, so it doesn't work. Once I go into that dotted selection area, you can see that it starts getting rid of whatever I'm doing because that's where I'm erasing. That's what I have selected. So I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to switch to the rectangle select again and click, and that'll deselect effectively as long as you don't drag anywhere. Um, so that's the selection tools. Um, Essentially, going forward, the movement tools are pretty basic and easy to understand, so I'll fly right through these. First is the Move Selected Pixels tool. It's the first arrow cursor on the right-hand side of the toolbar. And all that does is it moves whatever you have selected. So no matter what tool you use to select an area, it's going to move whatever is in that area. So I'm going to take the rectangle select the paint.net logo, and I'm going to click on this Move Selected Pixels tool, and immediately that goes from a selection area to like a dotted line with a bunch of dots, which you can use to either rotate if you hover off of one of them and click and drag, or you can shrink, hold shift and dimensionally scale it, or you can just stretch it, whatever you want to do. You can do that with the Move Selected Pixels tool. So, I mean, that's a pretty crucial tool that you'll be using all the time. Like I use that tool probably more than anything else when messing around in Paint.net. Next is the Move Selection tool. So all this does is moves whatever selection you've created, whatever kind of selection it may be. I could go back and, highlight this blue area that I made to make it look like a rectangle select, and I could move that selection over here, and you can see it still holds its shape. That little star that didn't get selected because it's not in the same layer, that just doesn't matter. Like it holds its shape because you're just moving the selection that you created. Um, or vice versa, if you wanted to use the Move Selected Pixels tool, you could actually move that blue space that you highlighted and it would hold its shape wherever you take it, just like the selection did. But this time, instead of a selection, you're actually moving a graphical asset. Um, so, moving on, second to last, we have the zoom tool, which all it does is what the control mouse wheel does zoom wise. You can either click to zoom, so I will zoom in a bunch, left clicking, or you can zoom out, which is right click, or you can pan around. If you're super zoomed in and you need to move, but you don't want to switch tool, you can just hold your mouse wheel click and drag it, which is technically middle mouse or mouse 3. So I'm going to right click and zoom out a little bit. Um, Last but not least is the pan tool, which honestly, it actually kind of is the least. I never use the pan tool or the zoom tool at all. They're pretty much just unnecessary. Same with the move selection tool, honestly. All of these last ones I don't really use very often, but they're still useful, I guess, if like you want to utilize the whole toolbox and aren't as familiar with shortcuts and your uh, mouse and keyboard. So essentially you just click and drag and it pans you around. So I'm going to give a little demonstration of what the selection tool can do and what the Move Selected Pixels tool can do in unison and just by themselves essentially. Obviously you have to, I'm going to be using this sample text here for my example, but obviously you have to use the text tool to make that text, but I'm going to go over that in the next episode, so that'll be fine. Same with the magic wand. The reason I have a star here is so that I can really explain that better when I'm using the creative tools here in the next episode. So, um, let's just get right to it, I guess. I'm going to go to this little rectangle select tool, and with just this selection, I can completely change this phrase. So good meme turns into, right there, I select the rectangle select and select that word and hit delete. Completely just deletes it. It's like an eraser tool, but just with the selection tool, you don't even need anything else, just your keyboard and the rectangle select. Take the move selected pixels tool and you can rotate it. And if you hold shift, it'll rotate along like solid, like I'm guessing 15-degree increments, which keeps it looking nice instead of just like free rotating it. So I'm gonna rotate this uh, line from the exclamation mark to be horizontal, and then I'm gonna stretch it out with the move selected pixels dots that are around the selection box, and that makes it an underline. Then I can take the rectangle select, click once to deselect the line that was still selected. Then I can get a new uh, selection going here for this period and drag this little guy right to the end over here. And you'll see that good meme turned into good just with the use of a selection tool, keyboard buttons, and your mouse, and the move selection tool, obviously. But those are two peas in a pod. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll go into the creative tools in the next episode.